He's being called the Butcher of Damascus, and his story is one you should know. Hi, I'm Shani Ferguson from Jerusalem, telling you about what is happening in Israel this week. It's been an incredibly historic week, and it all has to do with Syria. Bashar al-Assad was actually born number 2. In other words, the spare. The heir, his older brother, was set to inherit the dictatorship that his father initiated when he took over Syria last century. Then his brother tragically died. Then Bashar, who was in London at the time, studying to be an eye doctor, was called back and quickly given the instructions and all the tools that he needed in order to take over from his dad when his father passed. And I remember in the early 2000s, when he took power, there were hopes that he was going to be a little more Western friendly. He married a nice British girl, and then things turned sour. He kept the connections with Arafat and other terrorist organizations and continued the pipeline of terror and weapons between Iran and Lebanon. So fast forward to about 2011, when you had a civil war breakout in Syria. Now, mind you, it's not like when you have civil war in the Middle East that you have the good guys against the bad guys. You have kind of like the bad guys against a lot more bad guys. And so you had Bashar, who was Shia Muslim, and he's being fought by the rebels who are Sunni Muslims, and it was a bloody battle. In fact, Syria has often been cited because of the massive casualties that have happened there. Over 500,000, easy, many of them Palestinians, and nobody batted an eye, nobody cared. And then when things happen in Gaza and you have a few thousand casualties, it's like the world is ending and you call it genocide. So back to Syria. Yesterday, Syria fell. In fact, it kind of happened over the weekend. In fact, the past 2 weeks, after 10 years of fighting, the past 2 weeks, the rebels suddenly got crazy momentum in Syria, took over city after city after city. And the day before Assad and the Syrian government fell, Assad told the U.S. that he was willing to cut ties with Iran and not have that weapons pipeline anymore. It was too little too late. He got on a plane, fled to Russia, where he's being given safe haven. And so yesterday, Syria officially fell into the hands of the rebels. The rebels are Sunni Muslim extremists. So then Israel immediately went and took over the other half of Mount Hermon. Now, I, as a child, always remember when you go up to Mount Hermon, which is the only ski resort we have in Israel, if you ski down the wrong side, they would tell me, you will be in Syria. So it's a very scary thing when you're going up there and you're trying to learn what to do and not to ski down the wrong side. Israel went and took the other side. These are protective measures. It's the reason Israel ever took the Golan Heights to begin with, because they are high mountains and they serve as a natural barrier. Syria is going to have a long road of recovery right now. One of the things that happened yesterday was a big news day, is Syria fell and the rebels stormed the Iranian embassy and destroyed it, indicating that they had no interest in continuing their relationships of terror funneling from Iran to Hezbollah in Lebanon. And then Israel took over Mount Hermon. So what does the future hold for Israel's neighbor, Syria? That is a good question, because it's not like the guys that just took over really love Israel. They've just been very busy fighting each other for the past decade. Now, an Israeli reporter asked the rebels yesterday, did Syria fall because of us? And he said, no, Syria fell because Sinwar decided on October 7th to attack Israel. And the dominoes that fell, the loss of leadership in Hamas and the loss of leadership in Hezbollah, weakened Iran. And the weakening of Iran gave the rebels the edge they needed to take over. And the agreements that can be made with the rebels, whether they want to just control their own country or whether they want to terrorize the countries around them, is yet to be seen. Definitely something worth praying, because the Middle East is in a process of rebuilding. This could also bring about the restructuring of the leadership in Iran. So pray into the new leaders that are being set in place in the Middle East. The Middle East is always a place where there's some form of chaos. And while there are evil dictators and people with really bad ideologies, such as destroying the world and any kind of infidels that exist in it, the best case scenario for Israel is that the countries hold their chaos within them. So if Lebanon wants to now return to being the Switzerland of the Middle East, she has that option because Hezbollah has been toppled. If Syria wants to consider having ties and focusing more on their economy than terrorizing the surrounding nations, they have hope too. If the Iranian people want to see that Iran is now in a weak place and maybe they can rise up and take down their government before their government builds their nuke bombs and creates another war, then now is the time to do that. And one of the most interesting things to follow will be what will happen to all the Syrian refugees that have moved to Europe. Will they be able to come home? And how will that change the face of Europe? So thank you for your prayers. Thank you for paying attention to what is happening in the Middle East. You can go to maozuisrael.org, subscribe to get more of our updates and things that are happening here in Israel and around in the Middle East region. Until next time, I'm Shani Ferguson. Shalom from Jerusalem.